Well, as we wrap up 2014, it was a year a lot of changes around the world that could profoundly affect our future in 2015 and beyond. That includes the official end to the war in Afghanistan. Former U.S. Army Ranger Captain Matt Bacik, who received 3 Purple Hearts serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, and veteran and military consultant Richard Dickerson join us to discuss the U.S. military policy going forward after the end of the war in Afghanistan. How you guys doing?
Great.
Good morning.
Hope you had a nice holiday. All right, so the president said it. We're out of Afghanistan officially, except leaving for a few troops. What does that mean for that region and our security going forward?
Well, I think we have to be very careful when you say end of the mission, because Matt was there doing combat, and he knows that there will be still training, there will be still opportunities for soldiers to be injured, to be killed, there are opportunities for suicide bombings, and this will continue. People are still in harm's way, and I think we should not limit or I think we get a misunderstanding of what this means, Mike.
What about and not only that, the 5 former detainees that were at Gitmo, they're not going to be released into Afghanistan. So what about,
Correct.
terror groups that we seem to have thought we have control over now who reforming up?
Correct. I mean, the war is not over in Afghanistan. We're going to have troops there. They're going to be in harm's way. Releasing prisoners to go back and fight on the battlefield, whether they're fighting against U.S. interests directly or U.S. allies, is going to be an issue, and I think it's a strategic mistake.
Well, obviously it's not our only problem around the world. So a lot of people are asking, in your opinion, is our military policy over the last few years, has it had an effect? Have we brought this upon ourselves, so to speak, or is it just a product of the changing times?
Well, I think we live in a tumultuous world when they have to acknowledge that there's evil in our world. ISIS, what we see, the spread across Syria and across Iraq, and that's problematic. We didn't create that problem, but we've had to respond to it. I think the larger issue that we have to think about is less than 1% of Americans serve in our armed forces, and so we're asked to be a lot of things across the globe with a very limited number of people.
I think the biggest concern is that we started with a Al-Qaeda type organization, and we've moved into this ISIS, which is an actual state. They collect taxes, they run schools, hospitals. Right. They have ambitions of taking over a region and then growing beyond that region. I think it's going to take, they're going to have to get to some kind of critical mass before the world powers are going to say, okay, enough is enough, and we'll fight against them jointly. And
you touched on it, though. I know a lot of these, the guys who go in the military and the women who go in the military, I don't think they went in there wanting to train other people. That's really not what you were trained to do, right? So
correct.
That in itself, it would seem to me, you want to follow orders, but it's not a huge motivation, I wouldn't think.
A little demoralizing.
Yeah. All right. Now let's talk a little bit more about ISIS. Are either one of you concerned, obviously where there's a concern about what they're doing across the world, what about crossing our borders?
I think that anytime you have a terrorist organization that has the capabilities and the resources of an ISIS-type group, you'd have to be concerned. And I think that we would be foolish not to be concerned. Our borders are porous, and there are opportunities for people who wish to do us harm. So we have to be vigilant, eternally vigilant, and there are so many targets, and they've proven that children, women, they're willing to strike at soft, undefended targets.
And Matt, when you look across the world, we still have issues, obviously, with Russia. We got issues in Syria. When you look at all of our issues that where we're fighting people in different terrorist groups, what is your biggest concern right now?
I think the biggest concern is are we able to really define the threat? I think it's more than just a terrorist threat. It's grown into an actual ideology with state actor parties. And I think the biggest concern is understanding, when is that big enough of an issue for world powers to say, hey, look, this is upsetting how the world runs in a modern time.
And so what you're saying is tough decisions at some point are going to have to be made.
Correct.
On policy. Okay, real quickly, I know we got to wrap up. What about us normalizing relations with Cuba? Richard, your thoughts?
I think it's overdue. I mean, you're 90 miles away. We lost 50,000 plus in Vietnam. We have normalization there. We lost thousands on the beaches in Europe and the battlefields. We have normalization with Germany and Italy. I find it to me, it doesn't make sense. I think it's overdue. I think the president has done the right thing, and I think we go forward. China is a communist country. We have normalization with them. Russia is a communist country. It's just so hypocritical for us to say we're not going to have relations with Cuba and we're having relations with all these other entities around the world, from my perspective.
Matt, what about Russia?
You know, with the Russians, honestly, I think we miss opportunities to try to find ways to defeat Islamofascism across the globe.
All right, Matt Bacik, Richard Dickerson, thank you gentlemen so much. Appreciate both of you for your service. All right.
Thanks.